Hey, what is up everyone, my name is Fred, and today we hit 250,000 subscribers, which is insane. I came here to inspire each and every one of you one by one, and you guys continue to inspire me on my journey. So thank you to everyone who did subscribe to my channel, and in celebration of 250,000 subscribers, I'm going to be doing a Draw My Life video, or at least a Draw My Life so far. Before I do this, I want to say sorry for the drawings I do. They're very amateur, I'm no art student myself, I'm just in college, 17-year-old normal person, and I really can't draw to save my life. But some of you guys were asking for a Draw My Life. Okay, a lot of you guys were asking me for a Draw My Life on this channel, so here it is, and I hope you enjoy it. So I'm going to try and avoid making anything in this video into a sob story. However, I must warn you, I do have a tendency for dragging on, so I'm going to try and keep it as clean as possible. So to start off with, I was born as a 1997 baby, given the name Fred, and I was a boy, and everyone was happy. I was raised in a loving family, a family of 4, with my older brother and my parents. My brother was 2.5 years older than me, and I was the final baby of the family. The only problem about me is that I was 3 weeks premature, and I was very underweight, and some things in me hadn't fully developed, so I had to be looked after for the next couple of weeks after birth. But that didn't bother us. I seemed like a healthy baby at the time, and I was given my own room, I had my own cot, and I was looked after very carefully, and nothing seemed to spring up to notice. Anyway, as I started to grow up over the next few months, myself decided to crawl. I managed to learn how to move around my own home, and eventually I could walk, and then I could talk and say my first few words. And this just seemed like the normal setup for any sort of baby growing into childhood. However, something went wrong. I would start to cry and I just wouldn't eat anything. I would end up becoming more and more upset over time, and no one really knew what was going on, and even because I was a baby, I had no clue what was going on as well. All my parents could tell is that I was getting very upset, and eventually I wouldn't be able to drink anything, I wouldn't be able to eat anything, and I would just throw everything away from me. For some whatever reason, even though I was starving and I really needed a drink, but for some whatever reason I wouldn't do anything, and I started losing all of my energy, and eventually just ended up sleeping or not doing anything at all. So, of course, naturally my parents became very worried and concerned for me, so took me to the doctors. However, them being as optimistic as possible, just issued me some drugs and said this will help and I've got some sort of infection. However, after time went by, a few weeks later, I still was not getting better. In fact, I was getting worse, I was crying, I was still throwing my food everywhere, and nothing the doctors gave me would end up helping me at all. So after so many times of trying to go to the doctors, eventually all I was issued was more and more medicine, saying it would help, and none of it ever did end up helping me. And of course I was getting more and more upset, I was turning blue and black all over, and at points they even had to check if I was still alive, because for some reason I was just getting worse and worse and worse, and all they could think of was some sort of baby infection. This being 1997, we ended up going to the hospital and seeing if there was anything more, until they realized there was something wrong with my heart, and flew me straight to hospital. While I was in the helicopter, I was only 5 months old, and my parents weren't allowed to come in the helicopter with me. Because of this, they realized how serious this was, and the moment I did end up going to hospital, I had to go straight into theatre where they could operate on me and find out exactly what was wrong. I never knew if I did end up dying on that day. All I know is that I was incredibly sick and I didn't have long to live. So in operating theatre, they tried to find out exactly what was wrong, until they finally managed to spot exactly what was wrong with me and diagnose me with a mitral valve condition. This is when you have 3 out of the 4 valves and the mitral one for some reason wasn't there. This was probably due to my premature birth. Anyway, after long hours of the theatre, they ended up patching me up, giving me a scar going down my chest, which is still here today and will be something I'll be living with for the rest of my life. Anyway, thanks to my repaired valve, I managed to live my life normally. I went straight into nursery from a baby. I went straight into primary school. There was no questioning or concerns, and I seemed to be doing okay. And I was getting my grades, I was making friends, I was playing in activities and sports, and no one really suspected anything wrong with me. Because of this, I managed to fit into society with my friends, I managed to fit in as myself, and I managed to fit in as a normal person who wouldn't need any extra care than anyone else would, and I could continue living my life just as any other normal person would be able to do so. And so on for 7 years, I managed to live like that, and when I became 7 years old, 7 years later, I ended up noticing a few more things were creeping up on me. For some annoying reason, I was falling back in sport. I wouldn't be able to run anything more than 10 or even 25 meters, and eventually people started to take sight of this and ended up reporting it straight to the doctors. Apparently it was something they predicted which would happen, and the valve which they repaired when I was a baby ended up in fact breaking. This meant that the blood flow was then going back into my heart, which caused me to not eat as much, caused me to have less energy, and ultimately caused me to go back into hospital, and I had to get my valve repaired again. Once I got the news broken to me, I found it quite a shock, and once I was told exactly what they had to do onto me, I really didn't like it. But me being so young, I didn't quite understand what I was going in for, and the effects it ended up having on my body ultimately ended up giving me about a dozen operations while I was in hospital. However, when I went into theatre, it ended up being about a 12-hour surgery, and they ended up just saying that they couldn't repair my heart valve anymore, so they ended up with the go-ahead that they had to replace it, which ended up giving me some sort of artificial valve in my heart. This did not go down well with my body, and because of this I ended up having about 12 other operations while I was still in hospital, and I ended up staying there for about 3 more weeks. It's fair to say I became very sick, and I did end up losing about a stone while I was in hospital. However, 3 weeks later I was finally dispatched and allowed to go home. But the shock it had on my body, I ended up being very skinny on the way back home. I remember I had to be put in a wheelchair and pretty much whirled around everywhere for the next few more weeks after that, and even then I was only allowed to stay at home, maybe sit on the sofa, maybe play a few video games, and that is exactly what I had to do for the next few more months while I had to recover before I had to go back to school. Anyway, a few months passed, I was coming up to 8 years old, and I ended up going back to school, and I was in year 3 at the time, and everyone was celebrating. They were happy I came back, and I was happy I came back, and I managed to build up my strength, go back into sports, go back into swimming, go back into doing things I loved, and I managed to do all this while regaining my energy, and I felt like I had a whole new life. Because of this, I managed to do things which I thought I could never do. I managed to travel the world with my family, I managed to do amazing things such as get good grades, things I never thought I would be able to do because of how badly my body started deteriorating before I went into my second surgery just a few more months ago. Anyway, a few years passed, not much more had changed. I ended up getting the grades I wanted, getting good grades, and I ended up going to secondary school where I met all of the friends which I'm still best friends with today. These are people I met in my form, people I met in classes, and these are the people who helped shape me. But something I realized over time is that a lot of my friends, for some reason, were getting a lot bigger than me, and I became very small in society of people my age. I was the smallest person in the year by far, and other people who were merely almost as small as me were still growing, and for some reason I was not. I remember I ended up going to about 1.5 centimeters in 1 year when I was about 14 years old. Because of this, I went to the doctors and they issued me a medicine which allowed me to grow. They diagnosed me with growth deficiency, which was essentially something in my pituitary gland which was not producing the hormones I needed. Anyway, the treatment for this was to have a needle every single day, either in my leg or in my belly button, and I still do this today, and I believe I'm going to be taken off this when it comes to about Christmas time, as I am starting to slow down of my growth. Although it seems painful, I ended up getting used to the pain after a while, and after the operations I went through beforehand, I didn't really mind about the pain or needles. It was just something which I had to deal with for the next few years of my life. Anyway, long story short, months went by where I ended up having to take this every single day, and I knew I had to take this for the next few years, and I still do now, like I said. So I decided to try and put this to use by tricking a few people into thinking that I was a lot younger than I was. So I ended up taking my violin skills, as I had played violin for the past few years, and I decided to take it to town and end up playing tunes for everyone in public. This was a very good confidence booster, and for some reason I really enjoyed it, and everyone enjoyed my music I played. Although I can't say I was the best player in town, I really wasn't amazing at violin. It still managed to earn me money, and it managed to earn me a lot more money than I would expect, apart from the few downsides of people shouting at me saying, "Oh, he's so cute," which was down to however young I looked at the time. Anyway, me being 14 years old and looking like a 9-year-old, I ended up making quite a bit of money, as people did end up calling me cute, and I remember some people were giving me notes after notes. It went from coins, coppers to notes, and I ended up saving up all of my money. Because of this, I wanted to help the homeless as well, so I did end up giving quite a bit of the money to the homeless, as I did feel bad, as I was taking a lot of the public's money busking when there were homeless people out there who did genuinely need it. So I ended up giving quite a bit of my money to the homeless, and I ended up just saving the rest of my money until one day when my growth hormones caught up with me, and a few years later, instead of looking like a 9-year-old when I was a 14-year-old, I ended up looking a lot older than I really was, which made a lot of the public realize I was not just some sort of talented toddler. So long story short, I ended up withdrawing a lot of my money and buying myself a kick-ass setup which I used in my room. This setup would include pretty much everything you would need for any sort of gaming night, and for some reason I was a gaming fanatic. I used to play games when I was a toddler. I used to play the PlayStation 1. I still have a whole box set of demos, so I decided to make my own kick-ass setup which allowed me to do almost anything I needed to do in regards to gaming. It was at this point when I got quite far into zombies and my brother realised exactly how much of a no-life I was when it came to gaming, where he said to me that I should start up YouTube, where people get to use their gaming talents and use their own videos and content to entertain others. I had no clue what this was, and I think it's fair to say that I was not the genius when it came to computers, so I didn't know a thing about editing. Anyway, once my brother showed me exactly what to do and exactly where to go and how to create my account and set everything up and told me exactly what I needed to have to make my channel, I decided to make my way into Call of Duty gaming in the hope to entertain others and teach others how to play the game and how to do things they wanted to do in Call of Duty. I mainly focused my channel around the Moon Easter egg, which at the time was not a great idea because having to focus a channel over one Easter egg is something very bad to do. However, at the time I launched up on the Moon Easter egg and I showed people how to do it, and for 3 days straight I wouldn't sleep until I ended up cracking the Easter egg, and I believe we were one of the first teams to complete this Easter egg in Call of Duty Black Ops 1. Yes, I was that much of a no-life, but I really enjoyed Call of Duty at the time. Anyway, I ended up getting my HD PVR, I ended up getting my microphones and everything I needed for recording, and eventually I ended up going live with my videos and teaching people exactly what to do in Call of Duty Black Ops 1, which from then on there took off onto my YouTube channel. I never really understood why I enjoyed YouTube so much, however the fact I could get my content out there and show it to thousands of people just gave me that sort of ambition to make something of myself online. It was easy, it was simple, and at the time it was incredibly fun to do. The thought I could upload almost anything and see how well it would do against you guys and develop some sort of fan base. I never thought of views as numbers, I would always think of them as people, and it's the easiest way to do so because when you do think of them as people, it helped motivate me a lot more than usual. The thought that maybe 10 people sitting in one room would be interested in watching one of my videos was a crazy idea, yet alone seeing 1,000 or even 20,000 people watching my video at once. Anyway, word broke out at school, and like always, a few people will end up starting to pick on you, not because they hate you, just because they're maybe jealous, they're envious, or they just want someone to pick at. So a few people ended up picking at me and shouting very, very immature slogans, and yes, they made me look myself down, they made me think bad of myself, but then it also played a key motivator because it made me want to make them wrong. So a few years passed, I ended up sticking to YouTube, got 35,000 subscribers, and ended up picking up Grand Theft Auto 5. Soon enough, I was blowing up already. I ended up going from a few thousand views a day all the way up to hundreds of thousands of views a day. I ended up getting $250,000 to $500,000 a day, got myself published in national newspaper with tens of thousands of shares, and I was blowing up everywhere. Soon enough, I ended up getting fans, I ended up meeting people, I ended up meeting YouTubers, impressions, brands, deals, and ended up making so many new friends who are interested in what I do and still stick by my side. And it's fair to say those who picked on me at the start, when they want to come and meet me up, I'm just like, I'll take my food. So now I'm here today, and I'm still making videos for you guys, and I love what I'm doing. I'm still going to do it, and I'm never going to give up. Don't worry to each and every one of you. You're still going to be seeing content from me because this is what I've done for years, and this is what I'll continue to do. I love doing what I do, and today I still sit in the same room with the same setup, doing exactly what I love to do every single day. Okay, I lied. Two things have changed in my room. I've got myself a red carpet, and I've also got an awesome Silver YouTube Award, thanks to you. So thank you to everyone who did subscribe to our channel, thank you to everyone who even left a like, left a comment, even shared a video. You are the reason why I'm here, and I hope to inspire each and every one of you for the future to come, and more people to come as well, while you inspire me to make awesome content for you guys, for today and for the future. Thank you to everyone, my name is Fred, and thank you for 250,000 subscribers. I hope you did enjoy, and I'll see you guys next time.